Hello and welcome to this video tutorial in Pro Tools. In this video we're looking at the edit modes. So those are the ones up here at the top. So it'll be nice and quick. Let me zoom in on a track. So I will go through various different shortcuts, but if you do Control, Command and the down arrow, that will make this nice and big just so we can see it. And Command and the left bracket and square bracket will do zooming for you. Okay, so what we can do when we're selecting things is we can use 4 different modes to do that and to move things around. So the most common one and the one you'll use for the majority of the time is slip mode. So what this means, if I zoom right in to individual samples, and let me just make that a bit bigger so you can see those, I can select any one of these. So this is right down to individual samples. Okay, if I go into grid mode and if I zoom out some more, you'll be able to see the grids. Let me reduce that again. Okay, so you can see the different grid points. If I switch this into grid mode, now there's a few different grid modes. If I just press it, there's absolute and relative, so I'll talk about those in a second. So absolute is the common one that you get here. If I try to select in the middle here, it will automatically jump to the closest one of the grid. And the grid values are set here. So if I set bars, for example, and click in the middle, it's only going to jump towards this one or this one over here. Whereas obviously I could go individually, and you can see when I select as well, that is selecting for each of the grids. Okay, so let's see what this relative mode means. Now if I zoom right in at the end, I was trying to get there so you could see it, and let me change the grid so we can see the individual ones. This happens to be on the grid, but if I go into slip mode here and just move it so it's not quite on a grid point, okay, and then we change this grid this time to be in relative grid. If I try to grab this and move it, watch what happens. So it's a sort of a third of the way in that side. If I try and drag it, it will automatically jump to one grid amount, but keeping it relative to where it was before. If I, however, put it into normal grid mode, so absolute grid mode, and try to do it this time, it jumps automatically to those grid points, so I'm not able to keep that relative amount that I wanted. So depending on what you've got, you'll sometimes want it in grid mode, sometimes in relative grid mode. Okay. I'm just going to undo so everything's back to normal. The next mode that we have, let's just do that so we can fit it all on, is shuffle mode. Shuffle mode is pretty cool. I quite like it anyway. What we can do is say that we want to cut out an area. I'm just going to put it back into slip mode. If I just hit the delete key, then it cuts out that section here. Let's just undo that. If I do it in shuffle mode, watch what happens this time. So I press delete and it jumps the right hand side up to the left hand side. So I'll show you that again, delete, and it jumps it up, which is great. And the really useful thing actually for this is being able to trim the beginning or end of something. So if I just zoom, oops, I keep using Logic shortcuts because I've been using it more regularly. Okay, so let's just play and see where the guitars come in. So they're just here. So actually, rather than me having to individually cut all of these, I can zoom in and I'll choose, let's choose this first acoustic guitar to be the one that I want. So if you hold down Control, Command and the down arrow, that will zoom into there. So we can see here, if I want to get right up to the first part of this, what I can do is I can press this button on, that's called Tab to Transients. So if I switch that one on, now if I press the Tab key, on this track, it takes me to that first transient. We will need to use fades on this, but I'll show you that in a second. Okay, and what we want to do is we want to be able to select this for all of the different tracks. So if I just make this a little smaller, just so we can see at least some of the tracks, what we want is this one to be selected on all of it. And how we can do that, if we just click in our groups on all, and then just hold down the shift key and click underneath or above, depending on where you are, it will now select all of these different ones. And what we can do is we can cut it at that particular point. So we can go to edit and we can separate clip at selection, or a nice shortcut is Command E. And that has now got rid of all of that one for us. And what we could do then is if we grab hold of this side, so using our grabber tool at the top, that's this one, we can just hit delete and this will shift everything to the beginning. So hit delete and that's shifted everything. And then what we're able to do as well is we can add a quick fade. Now I'll just zoom, sorry, wrong shortcuts. We'll just zoom in a little bit so you can see. Because we've still got all groups selected, that's good. And we could just do a very, very small fade at the beginning of there. And this just means that we'll have a 0 point at the beginning, so we're not going to have anything nasty sounding. So if we just zoom out of there and we press play. Oh, sorry, I've got it selected. That's what's happened there.
Something is burning. Something.
So that's starting right at the beginning, and this is really useful for when you want to identify the beat of the track and get a tempo map going, so that'll be covered in other videos. Okay, so that's shuffle mode. One thing I would definitely suggest when you've done any of this is click the group off, so don't have it selected, and just select anywhere in the track. Just to disable it all selected. You'll find that a lot easier. Return just takes you back to the beginning again. And then always take it out of shuffle mode because you'll be doing something and it won't be the one you want. Spot mode, if we want to grab something and move it, so say I wanted to move this acoustic guitar and I wanted to move it, as soon as I click, it gives us this spot dialog, and this is used for films a lot. So we can say exactly the point where we want it to start. And there's things called sync points, but that will be that's where we can sort of add, instead of, for example, it being at the beginning, we can add it on a transient point. We can add sync points, so we could set it for that. But basically, you type in what you want, you press OK. So let's say I wanted that on bar 2. Press OK, and it will jump that up to bar 2 like that. So that's what spot mode does. Okay. Like I said, usually you use slip mode rather than any of the others. Okay, so that's just talked about those different modes, and now hopefully you can use them to the best use for whatever it is that you're doing. Okay, thank you very much.